Good morning, Athens, and welcome to Education Matters, the official voice of the youth. Education Matters is sponsored by the Clark County School District. Better Together, the Clark County School District. Ellison's Professional Services. When you get your income taxes done this year, go with who you know. Ellison's Professional Services. And your local internet station, MeU Radio Athens. Check us out at meuradioathens.com. My name is McKenna Mincy, and joining me in the studio is my co-host,
Samaya Stone.
And today we are in for a treat. We have a guest co-host coming all the way from UGA. He's a student athlete studying in journalism and sports management. He's even a football player. He's got that ring, right? This is Mr. Matthew Brown. Could you introduce yourself to our audience?
Thank you, McKenna, for my time, and thank you guys for allowing me to be here. I'm excited to be here, and just says I can't give a better introduction than what you did so far. Thank you.
Of course, of course. And just getting right into it, today on the show, we are addressing local politics, and we will be interviewing Mr. Elder Johnson, who is running for the District 9 school board seat. Could you introduce yourself to the audience, please, sir?
Good afternoon. My name is Elder Johnson. Like she said, I'm running for school board District 9, Athens, Georgia. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Could you give us a little bit of your background, just telling people where you went to school and what you have done to get you to this point? What's your story?
Well, like I said, my name's Elder. I'm from Athens. I've been here most of all of my life. I did study college here at South Georgia, Fort Valley State University. I came back once I became a father. I'm a father of two. Both of my kids attend Barnett Shoals Elementary School here in the Athens Clark County School District. I'm an Athens native. I grew up in the Athens Clark County School District. I attended several elementary schools. I went to W.I. Cole Middle School, and I graduated 2004 from Cedar Shoals High School. I have been instrumental in the community. I deal with mentorships, tutoring programs. I'm also a coach, Little League coach, football and basketball. And I've grown so fond of all of the different cultures, the diversity, these children, different age groups. And I just wanted to put forth another effort to make myself a better asset to the community and an advocate and a voice. A lot of times I'm in conversations with some of these parents, and they're voicing their concerns and their frustrations with the school district and the school systems and some of the policies. And I shared some of those frustrations. However, I always try to look at myself as looking at the glass, halfway full rather than halfway empty. So I'm solution oriented. I look to try to look at the bright side of everything, try to make the best out of every situation. So just my perspective, my positive outlook on life, and like I said, dealing with situations. We want to try to turn some of the mishaps that have been plaguing our school district as of late into some beneficial situations and something that we can expound on in the future.
All right, I just want to get right into it. As you were talking, my wheels were turning, and I have a few questions for you, starting with, how do you think growing up in Athens has really affected this kind of passion that you have to advocate for the students living in this community?
That's a good question. I appreciate you for asking. One of the things that sticks out to me by being here from Athens, excuse me, I can identify with some of the needs of the children that may not be that much noticeable in the schools. We live in a poverty-stricken county here in Athens, Georgia. A lot of our students, the first things they see before they get on the school bus is homelessness. And if you look at the Gaines School area, there's 3-4 schools in that area. And like I said, that's one of the areas that's hit the hardest when it comes to poverty and homelessness. And so that has to have a direct impact on a child. Children are sponges. They soak up everything they see. I think it's danger in telling the child to, do as I say, not as I do, because that's exactly what they're going to do, what they see you doing. We are, as adults, we're walking role models, whether we choose to be that or not. And so just me trying to be conscious of, the way I present my life is my testimony. It's my campaign. It's not just words. It's how I live. And I think me just being one person, being a living example, could speak volumes and maybe change lives. Just me taking the chance and taking the risk to put my name in the hat and run this race. And I think that's very important because I'm somebody that the community is familiar with and somebody that can identify with.
I'm gonna go ahead and ask my question right here, Mr. Johnson. I heard how you said you've been recognized as somebody who's been a part of this community. How have you seen things change from whenever you grew up as a child and a student in Athens, Clarke County versus to what your children may be seeing now? What would you say what is different, what is similar? Can you speak to that?
One of the things, that's a really good question. The first thing that pops out into my mind has to be the discipline. I feel like just, for example, in high school, when I attended high school, when you get to fighting in school, that's an automatic 10-day suspension. You can't miss more than 7 days of school or you lose. You got to repeat that grade. And so it's kind of discouraging to really commit to having a fight at school on campus knowing that you're going to repeat ninth grade. Is the ramifications for destructive behavior were a lot more stricter, I feel, than what they are now. I feel like the school board has grown soft in that aspect, just because I know COVID hit. I know we're running into this spectacle of trying to designate a new superintendent, and there's other more pressing issues right now as far as to try to regulate discipline. However, it's very important because discipline creates distractions. And, at a school district like ours, when we're at the bottom of the totem pole as far as ratings in reading and proficiency and math proficiency, we need to try to eliminate as many distractions as we can as soon as possible. And I think stepping up our disciplinary actions and our policies is very imperative right now.
Okay, you spoke about how Athens, Clarke County is a very popular city and how the Clarke County School District has kind of grown soft. What is your plan to kind of help and save that with your election and with your running?
Well, I think that's a great question. I appreciate that as well. And I think it's very important, anybody in any type of leadership position or political stance, to be a listening ear. You want to identify with the root cause of the problem. You want to listen to the stress, listen to the frustrations, but then try to identify the cause of it so you can better gauge a solution. I don't have one direct plan, but I think it's imperative when you're dealing with youth and troubled youth that you want to keep them engaged. A lot of people says it starts at the home. Well, some of these homes are broken homes. Some of these mothers are working long hours. Some of these kids are left to their own vices. And so it really takes a village. So when you speak of the home, you can't just put that on one family or parent. It takes a village to raise these kids. And so we have to keep them engaged. We have to come up with different ideas and programs or activities so we have something outside of this school establishment. I would love for it to be based in the school district or something that the school district is a big part of. But like I said, we're going to have to pull all of our resources if we really want to, as a collective group, see these kids excel. And it's not just, hey, football, basketball, or, every child doesn't need to be led down that road. I think it's important that we stress trades. These kids, every child does not have to go to college. It's ideal. You would like that, but, we're setting these kids up for failure. We don't, as well as try to lead them down the trail to college, explain to them, how to budget, how to manage debts. Because when you go to college, you incur debt. And so that's the small part is really a big part that they don't really stress when they're trying to get you out of high school and push you into college. Like, okay, you're going to be taking these classes, you're going to be on your own, you're going to be living in the dorm, mom and dad is not going to be there, but you're also going to have this bill that you're going to be required to pay back once you graduate, if you graduate, and then if you land a job in the field that you're actually trying to pursue. A lot of these times, and I'm guilty, I went to college, studied mass communications, and ended up working in a plant for 5 or 6 years straight out of college, just because the jobs just weren't there, And so all of that needs to be, informed to these students at the whole. They need the whole picture, not just a glimpse of it.
I can definitely see in just all that you've said and the passion with which you speak, I can see that bright thinking that you were describing to us earlier. But that is not the reality on our school board. As I'm sure you know, you said that you, as a parent, had some grievances yourself. What is your plan to rally your fellow board members, even those who may be opposed to some of your stances, to create the village that these children need?
Well, the word that pops out into my head is cooperation. And so you have to work alongside with somebody that may have a different educational background than you, someone that may have a different cultural background with you, but education and these kids have to be the common goal. There has to be something that, hey, we can agree to disagree on, but ultimately, if it's going to benefit the kids, that should be the determining factor. I'm just one of 9 board members if I get elected. And so it's going to be hard. It's hard sometimes agreeing with my kid's mother. So just imagine trying to agree with 8 other individuals about how to best, steer. We all have good intentions. And so it's not like we're doing anything malicious or we have, I don't think anybody would put this much effort into or dedication to take time out of their life to do something. It's with no check involved, basically. It's not like I'm doing this for the money. So it's like other people on this board have done the same thing that I'm doing. And so for us to get this far, we should be able to, even if we disagree, put the kids first and what would benefit. And sometimes it may be a trial and error. We're going to have a new superintendent. So not only will we have to cooperate with one another, we'll have to collectively agree on a stance to present to a superintendent to try to cooperate with him as well. And so it's going to take long, hard works. It's not just going to happen, one Thursday out of the month and we're just going to set these policies in motion and everything's going to be kumbaya. It's going to take a lot of hard work and dedication. And not just for me, we're going to have everybody has to be actively participating in the conversation.
Do you have any discomfort or like mixed feelings when you think about working with youth under the Board of Education?
I don't have any discomfort. Just because I've witnessed some of the worst, and I feel like the best is yet to come. And I feel like nothing worth gaining is going to be easy to come by. I feel like life is more rewarding when you can appreciate the fact that you put the hard work in and then you can see the fruits of your labor. If something was just given to you, you're not really going to cherish it. You might not even take care of it too good because you didn't earn it. It was just placed in your hands. And so if it's something that we can work together on and actually fight and work to accomplish something, the reward will be greater than you can imagine.
This is something kind of specific that I want to touch on. You mentioned something about school board becoming soft, and I'm going to go ahead and ask this question, but we will answer this after we get back from our break. But recently, the district has taken this stance of restorative justice, which is the explanation behind many of their policies that show a lot more leniency to students. How do you plan to navigate your stances knowing that the district is moving in an opposite direction? Welcome back to Education Matters. You are still here with McKenna Mincy.
Samaya Stone.
And we are still here with our guest co-host, Mr. Matt Brown, and with a candidate for School Board District 9 seat, Mr. Elder Johnson. But before we get back into our conversation and have him answer our last question, we're going to have our word of the week by Samaya.
Thank you. The word of the week for this week is flaccid. The definition of flaccid is not firm or stiff or lacking normal or youthful firmness. It used in a sentence is the flaccid stalks of celery that had been around for too long. And that has been your word of the week.
All right, getting right back into it, I will re-ask this question. Do you think that your stances on discipline opposing the district's movement towards more restorative justice will be a problem if you are to be elected?
Well, I don't think restorative justice is all bad. I think it is a necessary evil. You do want to be able to, before you just discipline a child, you want to try to identify, why the whys, and try to find the root cause. But then at the end of the day, if we have to look at what's worked and what hasn't, and we have to really look at it on a case-to-case basis. Some of these kids, the issues are simple. They're just acting out for attention, or they may have been diagnosed with a attention disorder. We don't need to just go and diagnosing kids and just put them all in one category. We don't need to do that. We need to look at it on a case by case. Some of these issues are deeper than that, and we do need to have something that where we cannot tolerate. You know, if it's one bad apple in the bunch, it's going to spoil the whole bunch. If we're looking at our test scores and just about the whole district across the board is less of 5 on average, you know, and on a scale of 1 to 10, then we have to do something immediately about it because all of the children are suffering. And if we're just having these, you know, these group meetings and just trying to talk the discipline into these children, I don't think that is working pretty productive, and it hasn't been increasing any of the test scores, you know. So it's like, let's just try to weigh our options and figure out what will work. I'm an open-minded person. I like to consider all of the perspectives. However, I also am taking a position of leadership, so I have to take a stance on something, and it's something that I believe works or has worked when I was growing up. You know, like I said, you get to fighting at school, you got to repeat your grade. They're not going to tolerate that. So some stuff we just can't tolerate because we have these kids at stake, and all of them don't have these issues. So in efforts to try to weed out the issues, maybe the restorative justice, you know, that approach can identify some of the things, but then after we identify, what steps of action are we going to take as a result of identifying the problem?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go back to something really quickly. You did say that, you know, restorative justice, not all bad, and that we should definitely look at things on a case-by-case basis. How would you respond to someone who may say case-by-case is unfair, that's not going to give all children equal opportunities, that may not be what's best?
Well, I just would tell that person just to consider the education of the school as a whole. A lot of times you get to, some people say, hey, we need to bring back paddles in the school. And then you're going to have the loud people in the back saying, ain't nobody finna touch my baby. And so, you know, it's just like you're not going to be able to please everybody. But you have to look at what's going to benefit the whole, you know. And I believe the best approach is because every child, when they go home, they go to a different family, you know. One family might have a mom and dad sitting together. They're eating a dinner prepared by the mom that cooked. She's a stay-at-home mom. The other child might not have nobody at home because the daddy don't live there. The mom's at work, so they're eating noodles tonight. So when we come to, it's not equal. But when we come to school, it should be equal. Everybody, my platform I'm running on is transparency, inclusiveness, and safety. And with that inclusiveness piece, yeah, I'm talking about black, white, LGBT, all of that, but I'm also talking about the students, the teachers, the bus drivers, the crossing guards. Everybody should feel welcome once they step foot into a school that's part of Athens Clark County School District.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Not only because like it should be equal, but because at school, the way they make it seem, they want everybody to succeed. But then behind closed doors, you have that kind of, I don't want to say animosity, but it's kind of like you have those students that are kind of segregated from everybody else because of the things that they struggle with or the way that they aren't accepted.
You made a good point. I appreciate that. And it brings to mind the special ed program. A lot of times you have people with students with disabilities, but all their disabilities are different. But we always group them together and put them all in one class and expect them to all learn at the same pace. Yeah. And that's just not a reality. But that gets very little attention and very little publicity. But that's a big problem in our schools, and not only in special ed, it's across the board. We can't expect a child that's having a behavior issues at school and another child that has straight A's to learn the same and to get the same support at home. Because like you said, when you go home, when you're at school, they're expecting you to succeed. But when you go home, one student may have extra help. His parents may have hired a tutor. The other student don't even have no help with their homework. And so they're coming to class. One of them getting bad grades because they did the homework. The other one's getting extra help outside the school. So they're in the same grade, in the same class, but they're just not on the same level. And we're looking at it too broadly. And so that's why I say a lot about case by case. I know it's impossible to teach every child individually, but we do need to supply the schools with more teachers or instructors or parapros and stuff, substitute teachers. We really need to pay them more. And I don't know what our budget is for that, but I think that's something that I'm gonna be vocal about. You know, we want to pay the people that's taking care of our children well, because we want them to take care of our kids well. You know, and I don't want to feel like my child coming home and my teacher don't like me, that's why I got my bad grades. And then I'm thinking, oh, this is just because you're not paying attention. Then I go to the PTO and I get the vibe from the teacher that they don't even want to be here because they're not being paid well. They having to deal with too many behavior issues. There's too many distractions in the class. You know, it's bad enough as it was with the COVID. That hit everybody really hard. And so to try to get back on track, we have to do something differently than we've been doing.
And I can definitely vouch with that. You can get a lot of vibes from not only teachers but students. And it's like teachers will start to give out on their students. It's like, okay, you don't want to be here, I don't want to be here either. Like, you show me this, I'm just gonna return your energy. And I feel like it shouldn't be like that. Like, you just have to be able to uplift those students that are down. You shouldn't want to stoop down and be down with them because of what they have going on. Because at the end of the day, school should be equal. You know, you should be that person. When they are down, they should be able to turn to you and you be able to uplift and bring that up.
That's absolutely right. I appreciate it.
This is a nice direction that we are going in, because the last show that I interviewed for was with our chief financial officer for the Clark County School District, Mr. Byron Schooneman. And as a member of the superintendent's student advisory council, I've had a chance to talk to Dr. Selena Blankenship, who is over that hiring process and going out and finding these teachers. And both of them, in that conversation, they did really push this issue of wanting to recruit teachers and to make Clark County more appealing to them, while also balancing that out with getting everyone on the same page, working within the budget. So I do like everything that you said, and we seem to be on a theme here where everyone is trying to do better coming out of COVID and going into the future of our schools. And it's really refreshing to see so many people be on the same page.
Right, I agree.
This is going to be me going back really quickly because I cannot skip over this. Even though I am a high schooler, I practically grew up at Fort Valley State going to homecomings, and I do not want to I don't want us to gloss over that. You are an FVSU grad, and I would like you to share with the audience how that really affected you, because I know that going to an HBCU is a bit different from going to a PWI, and everyone always talks about how it has changed their outlook. So I just want to hear your personal experience.
I enjoyed Fort Valley State University. I made the conscious decision to only apply to HBCUs when I graduated from high school. And I did that just because I grew up in high school. I was one of the kids that was smarter than the rest of my buddies, and I kind of was ashamed about that because it wasn't really cool to get all the good grades. Everybody thought that you was just a little smart aleck or whatever, you know, and you know what I mean? They thought you was preppy or whatever. And so when I graduated, I got the Hope Scholarship. I could have went to Georgia probably, but I didn't even apply because I lived in Athens. I wanted to get out of Athens. And then when I started to consider colleges, I applied to Morehouse, I applied to Clark Atlanta, I applied to Howard, I applied to Albany State, and I applied to Fort Valley State. And Albany and Fort Valley were just the first ones to send me my acceptance letter back, so I went down to Fort Valley, and the only reason I really went to Fort Valley is because I had an older cousin that attended Fort Valley, so I was more familiar with Fort Valley, and I think the commute to Albany State was like 3 hours, and Fort Valley was like 2 hours, so that was the reason. In case I didn't like it, 2 hours wasn't that bad. I can come home on the weekends or whatever. But when I got there, and that might have been a solid reason, you know, I didn't even really consider college after high school because I wasn't mentally prepared for that. I was just, high school was the goal, you know, just graduate from high school. And so once I accomplished that, you know, then my mom was basically, you know, like a black mother would be, you ain't finna sit around here, you know, go to the army or something, you're gonna do something, you know. Right. So I decided to go to college. And I was amazed at all of the brown and black skinned people that were brighter than me, more intelligent than me, more talented than I was, and some of the people that were a little less talented than I was, but we were all in this institution to succeed in something, and that inspired me, and it brought it. I keep a part of that with me, and I bring it back to try to help give back to my community as well, and inspire some of the youth in Athens, where I'm from.
See, I love
And
that.
as we
HBC.
go into our next segment after this break, definitely want to touch on how you plan to share that inspiration with the students in this community. And we'll see you guys right after.
Welcome back to Education Matters. You're still here with Samaya Stone.
And McKenna Mincy.
And we are still here with Mr. Elder Johnson and our guest co-host, Mr. Matthew Brown. But before we jump into our third segment, we are going to have our words to grow on by McKenna.
Keep your face always towards the sunshine, and shadows will fall behind you by Walt Whitman. Now, this is just getting back into what we were talking about with the effect that going to an HBCU had on your perspective in general. And you said something that really stuck out to me about being surrounded by other people who looked like you, who were at the same level of intelligence and talent, if not higher. And I really just want you to touch on how that specifically has affected your view of what is happening within the Clark County School District and how you want to change that.
I appreciate that. Not all brown-skinned children are at a disadvantage. And I'm not just running for black people. I'm running for all of the children, all races, all demographics, all cultures. But specifically, I am a black man. I do have black and brown children. And one of the things that was emphasized to me growing up was, hey, you need to excel in music or art or sports. And those were our basic three options of what would you want to be when you grow up. You want to be a ball player or a rapper or something of that nature. And so going to a HBCU, there's so many other professions, and I was blessed to be able to witness firsthand, people that I took classes with that are now lawyers and doctors, and not just that. Maybe the 4-year college route didn't work for them, but they're still successful as a truck driver or electrician or a plumber. And these are people that, came fresh out of a mixed high school like I did, but made the decision to go to an all-black college and university. And it's a historical all-black college and university. A lot of people don't know Fort Valley State used to be the Fort Valley State College. Now it's a university, and it's one of 2 state land grant institutions in the state of Georgia, the other being the University of Georgia. So a lot of people don't know this. Very, very prestigious to be a part of both the University of Georgia, which is a PWI, and then you got Fort Valley State, which is the HBCU. And so I just want to take all of that inspiration that I gathered and bring it back home and show people that, hey, our youth, hey, man, there's more options than just, if you don't make it in football. Hey, I never thought this time last year I'll be here, doing interviews and forums and making my run for school board. But sometimes life just hits you and something sparks a light and a passion in you, and you have to just go with it. It might be my calling. I don't know. But at the very least, it's something of an inspiration that could be drawn upon, not from just people looking up to me. Me doing this, I'm inspired by you all. I wish I had the opportunity to, host a radio station while I was still in college. Like, this is big to me. And I like to see more stuff like that, just to give people other options. You can go straight from high school and be a radio personality. You don't have to try to be the number 1 shoot guard or whatever, so it's more options. I feel like the sky's the limit, but a lot of times we don't give our children the sky to look at. We give them objects in the sky to tell them to shoot for. But it's so many other possibilities. They're endless. And so that's what I want to bring to my community and to the school board.
We talked about this a little bit in the last segment and a lot off the air. Mr. Johnson, you went to a HBCU, but Mr. Brown, you are currently a student at UGA, which is a PWI. Would you like to give your perspective on that and how that affects you now?
Before I get into that, I want to say this. Whenever I was listening to Mr. Johnson just then, the word that kept coming to my mind was representation. So one thing that I was steadily thinking, of how is the best way to phrase this? What you can't see, you can't aspire to be. And so when Mr. Johnson, I believe in speaking things into existence. Whenever you do get elected and you walk through the halls, I'd say make yourself presentable to make yourself noticeable. Like don't be someone, like allow yourself to be seen by other students. So like, okay, I can aspire to be a candidate on the board, or I can be on a school board member. Like I pride myself. And I'm going to tie this into your question. My story at UGA looks a lot different than other black students, I say, because, one, I had the opportunity to just be a student at UGA. But I also played football. If I didn't go to UGA, I'd be playing football either at the Army of West Point up in New York or playing football at Mercer. But I took a chance. I was like, look, UGA felt most at home. Although I'm not going to be on scholarship, I'm still going to take the chance and go out for the team. Got recruited, did my part, did my last 4 years. It was a grind, but my journey looked a whole lot different because I prided myself on being more than just an athlete. That's the number one thing about myself. I cannot stand labels. And just as you said, society sometimes can paint people out to be what success looks like. Success always doesn't look like an athlete that's getting paid millions of dollars in the league, or an artist that's dropping videos every week and getting numbers of streams and going on concerts. Success can take on so many different forms. And I think it's important that, just as you're saying, it's important to remind people in the community, whether you are a teacher, a professor, a doctor, a board member, it's important just to carry that and just so that other people are watching whether you know it or not. So when I say when I went to a PWI, I prided myself on being more than an athlete. So I had pride being, and this is an interesting fact, on less than 8% of the students, 8% of the population at UGA are black or African American. That's a small number. There's about 30,000 students. And then you take into account about how many of those players are actually athletes that play a sport. So that's just some food for thought. So whenever people ask me on campus, oh, you have to play a sport. What sport do you play? Oh, I don't always lead. I don't play football. I say, oh, I'm just a journalism student. Or I'm studying media and communications. So my story might have looked different a lot from what Mr. Johnson's did going to HBCU, because there is an assumption if you are black or a person of color and you have a strong build, you are at that school for athletics. But that's not always the case. And so I think that's just always interesting. It's something that's being challenged daily, but that's something that some people might have to encounter when they go to a large PWI, like the University of Georgia. Do I regret it? Not at all. Because at the University of Georgia, and I'm sure Mr. Johnson can attest to this, you can find so many different types of communities and groups on a campus that may look different than what the stereotype may look like at that, whatever the case may be, what the most common group may be at that school. So if you're interested, for example, we have a group on campus that's specified specifically for Nigerian students, people with Nigerian heritage and background. So there's so many different groups and communities you can find within that school where you can make yourself feel at home, where you can find people who look like you, or find people who look like you who have different opinions and different perspectives. So although I didn't have that same type of feeling whenever I walked on campus, like, wow, everybody looks like me. That was not the case. Only where I saw a lot of people who looked like me was on that football team and inside that locker room. And even then, so many different personalities and so many different attitudes and so many different aspirations and backgrounds existed. Some people on that team, their only goal was to just make it to the league. It was NFL or bust. Whereas myself, I told myself, I want to get this degree. My parents did it. I saw what it did for their lives. I have a standard I have to live up to. I want to do that to better off my life. And then you also run into other people. I just want to be the first person from my school from my family to graduate. So everybody's goal is entirely different at a PWI. Whether you're white, black, Hispanic, or Asian, your story is so different. And I feel like it's not a knock at HBCUs and it's not a knock at PWIs, but everybody's experience is entirely different. I threw a lot at you, but that's just a little bit as to what I've seen in my past 4 years.
I know that I personally do plan to apply to both for reasons that you both highlighted. On the side of PWIs, you have vast opportunities in terms of networking and just getting to be around different people. Everyone has a different story. As you said, you're going to be around like a very diverse environment that you can almost guarantee will mirror the world that you are stepping into. But on the other hand, at an HBCU, you are walking into a place that will immediately reflect you, and that will often, it come in to support you, and you are going to be networking with an entirely different group of people, and you are going to be immersed in not only education but also culture. And they both give different things, but they also both advocate for the same thing, which is teaching children to reach with no limits. The sky is just what we stand on. Can't remember exactly who said that, but I think it fits. And I just think that it's great to just feel this energy of, reaching towards that next level.
Exactly. I think to your point, one thing about HBCUs that I cherish, so like I was actually jealous of some of my friends and everything who had that opportunity. It was just that sense of community. You had to look harder at the University of Georgia or at PWI, where the 8% of the population is black or African American or people who look like you. But whenever you did find it, there was memories to be made. So, but another thing we touched on earlier before the break, I want to ask you, Mr. Johnson, why do you think that some, and you too as well, since you guys are in the school system, and myself being from Savannah, Georgia, and a student at the University of Georgia, it's kind of wild to me to see how some students at Clark Central High School or Cedar Shoals High School in the Clark County area don't really have the aspiration or the desire to go to UGA. Like, what do you think is that? What do you think is in the back of some students' mind that's like, okay, I can't get in there, or that's not for me, besides it being so close to home?
That's a great question. I think it has a lot to do with just not seeing people come from these local institutions and go to UGA. It's been very few and short and far in between. I did have a couple of classmates that went to the University of Georgia. Like I said, my brother went, but he didn't. When my brother went, he didn't initially go. He wasn't accepted. His grades was up to par. He did excellent on his essays and things of that nature. But he had to end up going to Piedmont first and then transferring in to Georgia. And so the trend is, for whatever reason, a lot of our students on an academic level, even on the athletic level, are just not looked at or not recruited by that university. And even when they're applying for them, it's just the acceptance rates from Athens, Clark County is just not there. And so it's kind of discouraging when you see people that aspire to go to that school and apply to go to that school, people that are talented enough and smart enough to go to that school not being accepted, then it's kind of like, again, like from what she was saying, I grew up here, I'm really not interested, I want to go off to college. And then even if I don't want to go off to college, if I want to stay home and I apply and I try to go to this school and they don't accept me, then that's discouraging as well. And so I think that has a lot to do with it. People are familiar with what they see. If I don't see something happening in my community, then I kind of lose hope, or it seems like a fantasy to me. It doesn't seem like a reality. It seems like something like a pipe dream. And so I think that's what's plaguing our community. Is just, like you said, if it's 8% black at that school, and probably half of them are athletes, then how many of those come from Athens? It's discouraging. And it's almost like I had a neighbor, actually, Quint Moses. He played football and basketball for University of Georgia, but it's almost like he had to be a dual athlete to get a good look, almost. So, but it's tough, and that's a great question, and it's just, that's just my perspective. It's just how I see things, but I don't know if that's the answer, but I think it's one of the answers.
And we will get the answers from myself and Samaya after we get back off of this break. We'll see you after. All right, we are back with Education Matters. You are speaking with Miss McKenna Mincy.
Samaya Stone.
And we are still here with Mr. Elder Johnson, who is running for school district's seat 9 for our Board of Education, and with our guest co-host, Matt Brown. And we're just going to jump right back into it, and I am going to be answering his question from the last segment. And I'm going to let you know right now, I'm about to hop on a super soapbox because growing up in Athens and being around the parents that I had, I'm about to really delve into a little bit of history as to why.
Let's break it down. Go for it.
Yeah, of course. So just to start off with, you have to think about the placement of UGA. UGA is downtown, huge campus, beautiful campus. Got botanical gardens, all these beautiful places, huge stadium. They bring in a lot of money to the city. But then you have to think about where the high schools are placed. Clark Central is right next to, what do they call that, Fraternity Row? We call it a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But in short, on Millage, nothing but frat houses. When you're first coming out of the school, the first thing that you see is coming from a school that is Title IX. You go right outside and there are people walking around in $50 shorts, $100 tops, expensive boots. It's summertime. Why are you wearing boots? And they're doing all of the underage drinking and smoking and things that you might have seen your friends get a court date for. And they're under this kind of safety net of those letters and of that university. And that's just to start with. We don't even get to housing in Athens. When you look at low-income housing in Athens, the way that it's positioned, also near both high schools, not just Clark Central, but also near Cedar Shoals. But specifically talking about the placement of UGA, right down the street from this beautiful campus, the arches, right, Tate Center. You have Chick-fil-A and Panda Express. We don't even have a Panda Express standalone in Athens. Right down the street, you see the projects right there. There's a whole different standard of living, and it's juxtaposed right in your face. You might see the Indigo Hotel on one side and Bethel Homes on the other side. And that is what people grow up with living in Athens, Georgia. Even if you are not from those places, that is what you see. Going even deeper, we can get into generational lines. You have professors at UGA who may boast being from Athens. They might even boast going to Clark Central, or rather Athens Industrial High. We don't have to touch on that right now. But they will boast going to these high schools, or if they are not too embarrassed to admit that they go to a high school that is now majority minority, they may talk about the elementary schools that they went to, like Alps or Whitehead. And then you turn around and those people don't live on the west side of Athens anymore. They don't live in the places that they grew up in, even though there are nice houses here. You got the suburbs down on Lavender. They don't live here. They see the area that they're in around UGA, and they think, no, not for me, not for my children. And they go and live in Oconee County and Madison County. Yep. Morgan County, Oglethorpe County, Winterville, Watkinsville, Bogart, Bishop, lots of other places, but never poor Athens, because that's not where they would want to raise their children. These UGA professors who get salaries that some can't even dream of take the money that this school makes, and instead of putting it back into the community, they're actively taking it away by purchasing houses in other districts and sending their children to other schools, maybe even going as far as to live in the very place that they talk so lowly about, and sending their children to a private school right down the street. There's so much harm done just with the presence. And if you grow up with that, even if you don't know this history, you know that feeling. I know because a lot of my friends do. It's something that we talk about often. There's no limit to the amount of grievances that people have. And I know that we were talking about sports with our football players. There have been mumblings of things said by recruiters, UGA, not wanting to come down to Clark Central because of the behavior of the students there. behavior of the students in this district. I cannot confirm or deny, but that also is kind of a discouraging factor for those athletes. They're not trying to make those grades because why would I want to go to a place where there's even the suspicion that someone is talking down on me? And so just being from Athens and knowing that history, I just know it's not UGA is not exactly at the top of my list either, and that's just because of these small things that start to build up, and that's just like the history side of it. Personally, I'm applying for dual enrollment at UGA this year, but it's important to recognize that aspect of it too. It's not just, I can't read at this level, I can't make these test scores. It's also just what we see in the community.
That's a great point you mentioned. Like I said, I was learning just then as you spoke. Like I said, being from Savannah, anything north of Macon to me was just Atlanta. Honestly, I didn't know much above Macon, and then coming to Georgia, I didn't see when I guess that's just my ignorance showing me that I didn't take into account since I wasn't familiar to the area as to how impoverished or how underdeveloped so many parts of Athens was. When I thought of Athens, I immediately thought of UGA.
And that's
And
how
most people do. And that's not
how
your
most
fault,
people do.
But, we have a whole bunch of stuff coming out, the other side of
McKenna
Athens.
gonna give you the
once
good
you find
side,
out
the
about
history.
it, that's how you connect the dots.
You're like,
whenever you
oh.
start having these conversations, though, the more these conversations are had, the more people will be willing to learn and understand and accept. Like, there's so much more going on behind the scenes of Athens besides the University of Georgia.
Sure.
Yeah, McKenna's going to give you the history side. I'm going to give you the dark, gloomy, impoverished side of the story. I've lived in Athens my whole life. UGA isn't at the top of my list because most of the points that McKenna hit on, you will turn on millage and you are writing down frat houses. Bethel Homes is around the corner. It's like all the poverty spots. Like this school brings in so much money. Yet Athens, Clarke County is yet so poor. Under 8% or almost 8% of the population at UGA is black. Almost the whole entire Athens is black. Most of Athens is in poverty. All the suburbs in Athens, most black people can't afford because we're living in poverty. Like, growing up, I knew I was poor. Like, it wasn't anything that wasn't new to me. It's like I knew the difference. Like, UGA, we ride past UGA all the time. I've been to UGA 1,000 times. But it's like most people like me or like my friends. Like, I'm not going to UGA. Why I'm not going to UGA? Because I can't afford it. Not that I'm not smart enough for it. But if I were to go to UGA, I'd be in debt for the rest of my life. I can't afford to go to UGA. I can't do it. It's like I live in the middle of a college city. All these people here have money. Everybody that goes to this college has money. Everybody that goes to UGA, everybody that thinks of Athens thinks UGA. Athens is much more than UGA. And people don't get that. It's like, UGA, it's a great thing. Like, UGA won't even shine light on athletes that live right here or students that live right here. They don't even give us that kind of like hope. It's like, okay, you live in Athens, cool, so what? You'll never go to UGA. I've never seen a UGA scout come to a Clark Central anything, ever.
Can I make a rebuttal to that?
Sure.
So again, my ignorance is like I'm learning by the minute from both of you talking. But for myself being in the College of Media and Journalism programs, we have student-ran media organizations where we're steadily looking for stories. I had the opportunity to talk to Lawrence Harris, who works in the Clarke County School District, and he was telling me about how much there's so many good things happening in Athens, but you don't hear about it because it doesn't make the news. Yeah. Most of the stuff that makes a local paper and local news either refers to school districts, local politics, or stuff that relates to UGA. Myself, I was looking for stuff to document, and whether it's in the county or whether it's at a particular high school. Like for this example, I would have never heard about this if I hadn't connected with Lawrence Harris. And I was like, look, I want to document what's happening at MEU radio. I want to document what's happening at Education Matters. The fact that this is a student-ran radio station, that floors me. I wish I had this opportunity back in high school when I was in Savannah. And even looking into Clark Central High School. They had the skate program, a little program made, and doing my research about it. Yes, I'm looking into doing a story on that. How there's a community, there's a group that meets. It's about twice a month. That serves as a community for people and students of color to learn how to get better with AP classes and rigorous courses. That sense of community is so precious that not more schools need, and I feel like those things need to be documented. But I'm just another person trying to move the pendulum forward, and how can we do that? And I can't say how many people read our student media, student-ran organizations and content that we put out through Grady News Source at the university, but I can say that there are students like myself looking to document the cool things and the things outside of Georgia here in Athens. So don't lose hope. That's that's my statement to say. Like I'm steadily looking for it, and you guys are providing hope, and like I'm inspired.
I'm sorry, I just got really excited because you mentioned SCAPE, and I'm currently the co-president of that club at Clark Central, and my teacher was just telling me about you. But unfortunately, we have come to the end of our show, and I just want to thank you, Mr. Johnson, for not only sharing your platform with us, but kind of letting us inside your mind, essentially showing us not only what your goals are, but also how you think, how you get there. And I'm sure that this will be very valuable to our viewers. And before we let you go, we have to ask you our essential question. You're on Education Matters, so we need to know, why does education matter to you?
Education matters because it is the key to open up every door imaginable for every citizen in America, in the world. If you don't know, if you're ignorant to a lot of things, you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. So education is just the flow of knowledge, the spreading of knowledge. And like I said, I think it's the key to opening up so many doors. So that makes it vital.
All right. Thank you so much, and thank you for listening to Education Matters, the official voice of the youth. Education Matters is sponsored by the Clark County School District, Ellison's Professional Services, and MeURadioAthens.com. If you missed any portion of this program or would like to hear it again, it can be heard Monday at 5:30 or Thursday at 10 a.m. on MeURadioAthens.com. It can also be played on demand from our YouTube channel, Education Matters Network. Education Matters is a production of the High School Completion Initiative, and we will see you next week.